The sound of the chair scraping against the floor still makes my chest tighten even years later. That night wasn't special. It was just another Tuesday in the house where I learned that kindness meant weakness. I was 25, living at my parents' home only because I was between jobs after the company I worked for downsized. My sister Ria was still the golden child, a 21-year-old whirlwind of perfume, entitlement, and messes I was expected to clean. I just finished my online job interview, my one chance to crawl back into stability. My laptop still sat open on the kitchen table when I heard her voice from upstairs. "Lane, my room's disgusting. Come clean it before Mom gets home." Decide. "It's your room, Ria. Clean it yourself." Her heels stomped down the stairs like she was a queen whose servant had dared talk back. "You think you're too good to help family now," she sneered. "You sit here all day pretending to work. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." "I am working," I said, keeping my voice even. Or at least trying to. Her eyes lit up like she'd found something juicy to throw at me. "Yeah, right. You're pretending like always. That's why they fired you." Before I could respond, the front door slammed open. Mom's voice cut through the house like a knife. "Why is Ria's room still filthy?" "Lane, what did I tell you?" I stood up slowly, my stomach twisting. "Mom, I was in a meeting. I told Ria she should do it herself." Mom's eyes darkened. "So now you think you can give orders?" Ria stood behind her, smirking. "I told her, Mom. She said no." Mom's hand landed on the back of the chair at the table. "You ungrateful brat. You live under this roof. You follow the rules." "I'm not your maid," I said quietly. The silence that followed was sharp and dangerous. Then, with a sudden jerk, she swung the chair forward. The wooden edge slammed into my back, the sound echoing through the kitchen. I gasped, stumbling against the counter. Pain shot up my spine like fire, my breath catching as the world blurred. Pain teaches faster than lectures. Dad's voice rumbled from behind me. He'd been there the whole time, sitting in his recliner, watching. "You'll remember this next time before opening that mouth." Ria laughed. Laughed like it was some kind of family entertainment. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I pushed myself up slowly, gripping the table. "You didn't have to." Mom cut me off. "Don't talk back after what you did. Go clean that room." I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who once packed my lunches, who used to braid my hair before school, now stood in front of me like a stranger who enjoyed watching me break. "I can't believe you," I whispered. "Believe it," she spat. "You were born with nothing but attitude. You should be thankful we even let you stay here." My back throbbed with every heartbeat. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. Instead, I walked to my room, shut the door, and collapsed on the floor. Through the thin walls, I heard them laughing. Mom, Dad, and Ria, as if hurting me was a family joke they'd share over dinner. That night, I pressed an ice pack against the bruise forming on my spine and stared at my ceiling. The house creaked like it was whispering reminders of all the times I'd been told I wasn't enough. But this time something shifted. Maybe it was the pain. Maybe it was the humiliation. Or maybe it was the moment I realized that no one was coming to save me. Not even myself, unless I finally stood up. The next morning, I smiled when Mom yelled for breakfast. I cooked their eggs, poured their coffee, said nothing when Ria complained her shirt wasn't ironed. But inside something was burning, because I'd made a decision that night, one they'd never see coming. The bruise on my back turned a deep purple by the next morning, spreading like spilled ink. Every time I moved, pain shot up my spine, but I smiled anyway. The kind of smile that hid something dangerous underneath. Mom thought she'd taught me a lesson. She whistled while cooking breakfast, humming like nothing happened, while Dad sat with his newspaper and Ria scrolled through her phone, still smirking. "Morning," I said softly as I entered the kitchen. Mom looked over her shoulder, surprised at my calm tone. "Morning. That's new. You finally learned respect." I forced a small laugh. "Guess pain really does teach faster, huh?" She grinned, proud of herself, Like breaking her daughter's spine was an accomplishment. Good. Maybe you'll finally be useful around here. I poured coffee, my hand trembling slightly. Not from fear, from control. I decided that if this house wanted me broken, I'd let them think I was. But only until I figured out how to make them feel what I'd lived with for years. By noon, Rhea had made her usual mess. Makeup smeared across the bathroom sink. Clothes tossed everywhere. "Lane," she called. "Bring me my sweater." I walked into her room and froze. My bedsheet was on her floor, covered in mud. "Why did you take my sheet?" I shrugged. "The dog puked on mine." "The dog?" Rhea smirked. "Don't start crying. It's just a sheet. I needed it more than you did." Before I could respond, Mom's voice cut through the hall. "Lane, you're supposed to be cleaning." Clenched my jaw. "You mean Rhea's room?" "Of course Rhea's room," she snapped. "She has more important things to do." I wanted to scream that I wasn't her maid, but I didn't. I needed time, patience, something I never used to have. That night, I lay in my bed, my back pressed against the cool wall. I listened as they laughed in the living room about me, about how dramatic I was, about how useless people need reminders. I bit my lip until I tasted blood, whispering to myself, "This isn't forever." The next morning, I woke up before everyone else. For the first time in years, I walked to Dad's shed, the one he never let me near. It smelled of gasoline and rust, full of half-broken tools. I found what I needed, a small lockbox. Inside were spare house keys, old bills, and his emergency contact papers, the ones they'd use if something ever happened to him or Mom. And right there, a folder labeled family insurance. Froze. They'd always said they couldn't afford my education, my rent, or even decent food. But there it was, proof of a policy under my name. They'd used my personal information to claim dependent benefits, cashing government aid I never saw a cent of. So the reason they kept me around wasn't family. It was money. That was the moment something in me broke for good. Later that afternoon, Mom handed me a broom. "Clean the porch before dinner." I took it quietly. Sure thing. But when I stepped outside, I wasn't sweeping. I was dialing. "Hello, this is the Department of Social Affairs," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I think there's been misuse of dependent benefits under my name." The woman on the other end asked a few questions. I gave her every detail, their full names, ID numbers, even the fake employment forms I found in the box. Then she said the words that made my heart race. "Thank you. We'll begin an investigation immediately." That night, while Mom and Dad ate dinner, I sat across from them, silent but smiling. Dad looked up. "What's with that grin?" "Nothing," I said. "Just learning faster." They laughed, thinking it was sarcasm. They didn't realize it was truth. 2 days later, the first call came. Dad answered, his voice casual. "Yes, this is Martin Keene." "Wait, what?" "Investigation." "That's impossible. There must be a mistake." Mom looked up from her phone, her fork clattering. "What's wrong?" Dad's eyes darted toward me. "They said someone reported us for benefits fraud. They're checking our accounts." Mom's face drained of color. "Who would do that?" I took a sip of water, meeting her gaze with the calmest smile I'd ever had. Maybe pain really does teach faster. The silence that fell over the table was thick enough to choke on. Rhea looked confused. Dad's hand trembled. And Mom, the woman who'd once laughed as I cried on the floor, couldn't even speak. I stood up slowly, the bruise on my back still faintly aching. "Dinner was nice," I said quietly. "Enjoy it while you can." Their eyes followed me, but no one dared to stop me. That night, as I packed my things, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. Revenge didn't always mean screaming or burning things or breaking what broke you. Sometimes it was silence. Sometimes it was simply leaving them to face what they built. I zipped up my bag, looked in the mirror and whispered, "You survived it, Lane. Now make them remember it." The investigation took less than 2 weeks to unravel their lives. Government auditors, phone calls, frozen accounts. Everything came crashing down like a house built on lies. The day it all became public, Mom's screams echoed through the house like sirens. I wasn't there to see it, of course. By then, I had moved into a small apartment in Briarfield, a quiet town south of the city. 1 bedroom, cracked walls and peace. That morning I was at work when my phone buzzed again and again. When I finally checked it, the first message was from Ria. "What did you do? They're losing everything. Dad's freaking out. Mom says they might go to jail." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Maybe pain teaches faster. Then I turned my phone off. That evening, as the sun sank behind the buildings, I made my way to a small cafe near the river. It was the kind of place that always smelled like cinnamon and espresso, quiet enough to hear your thoughts. I sat near the window, ordered coffee, and finally let myself breathe. For years, every breath in that house had been fear. Now it was freedom. The next week there was a knock on my apartment door. I froze when I saw through the peephole. Mom and Dad. Mom's face was pale, makeup streaked from tears. Dad looked older, smaller, like life had folded him in half. I opened the door halfway. "What do you want?" Mom clasped her hands together. "We lost everything, Lane. The accounts, the car, even the house might go. Please just tell them it was a misunderstanding. You can fix this." Dad's voice cracked. "We made mistakes, but you're our daughter." I almost laughed. "Your daughter? You made me your punching bag, your slave, your paperwork. You only remembered I was family when it benefited you." Mom's lip trembled. "Please, honey, we're begging." That word, begging, was almost sweet. "Begging," I repeated softly. "That's what I did when you hit me. When you watched Dad tell me pain would teach me a lesson. When you smashed a chair against my back and laughed." Dad stepped forward. "We didn't mean it." I looked him in the eye. The man who used to smirk while I cried. "You meant every second of it." He opened his mouth again, but I raised a hand. "You said pain teaches faster, so learn. Learn what it feels like to have no one listen." Mom's knees buckled. "Lane, please. We have nowhere to go." I stared at them for a long moment. Then I closed the door slowly until the latch clicked. No yelling, no screaming, just silence. Through the door I heard her sobbing, the same woman who once told me to be thankful I had a roof, now crying in the hallway, homeless and desperate. I walked to my kitchen, made myself tea, and sat by the window below. The city lights flickered, alive, unbothered, free. Soft knock came again. I didn't move. I just whispered to myself, "Pain teaches faster." And for the first time those words didn't hurt anymore. They felt like peace. Weeks later, I heard through a neighbor of theirs that they'd moved into a rundown motel near the edge of town. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same people who once said I didn't deserve comfort were now sleeping on stained sheets, fighting for warmth. I didn't visit. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because the best revenge wasn't their punishment. It was my indifference. One evening while watching the sunset from my apartment balcony, I felt a sudden ache in my back, the same spot where the chair had hit years ago. For a second it hurt again. Then it faded. That pain used to remind me of them. Now it reminded me that I survived them. And as the sun disappeared, I whispered to the fading light, "I hope you learned fast enough." Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.